Welcome everybody around the geek here with the review and recap for Obi Wan Kenobi, or just Kenobi, with your host Terrell, and I have special guest Will here today.
Hello.
From the Geek Will channel. You've probably seen it 1,000 times. Those funny intros that he does, it makes me laugh every time.
Thank you.
Will, I'm glad you had the opportunity to talk some Jedi water cooler talk today.
I am always down to talk about Star Wars because I don't get to talk about it very often. But yeah, I will talk about it whenever possible to talk about it. Yes.
So before we even get into the review and we talk about the show, what were kind of like your expectations going into this? Like, what did you want out of this? What did you expect to see?
So in terms of the Disney era of Star Wars, since they bought it back in
2014,
2014 when they bought it?
It's probably a little earlier than that. Probably like 2013.
I mean, they bought it about 3 years before The Force Awakens came out. So I'm going to say you're probably around like 2014. So I had high hopes for this one because I've always been a fan of Ewan McGregor. Sorry if that beat didn't come through. I've always been a fan of Ewan McGregor just because of the prequels, he was my favorite part. And
yeah, definitely.
I at the time wasn't a huge fan of the prequels for a number of reasons. mostly the acting and the story. Well, not even the acting, mostly the story and like how they told the story all together. But as I've gotten older, I appreciate what they did with it. There were a lot of elements about it that worked. In retrospect, there are still things that just kind of didn't, but it's none of the actors' fault, because that's why I hate when people like rag on actors. It's like they're just doing a job, people. So with Kenobi, I was very excited because I have such an affinity for Ewan McGregor. I think he did a great job as Obi Wan Kenobi. So I was interested to see what this timeline was going to be, how they were going to explain certain things, because this is a section of the entire saga that we haven't had a ton of experience or time in. I mean, we've gotten it more recently with stuff like the Bad Batch,
Rebels,
even with Rebels, but Rebels is actually a lot closer to like Rogue One and A New Hope but we're talking about that 20-year gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope. So there is a time frame that is unexplored, even though we know the fate of Kenobi in terms of the overarching story. It was kind of my feelings with like the Solo movie, whereas like we kind of know what happens with the character. We don't really need to see the beginnings of it. But again, that's for another discussion. But I was excited for this one. I was nervous because of the reception of the Book of Boba Fett, because that kind of dropped the ball for me a little bit in terms of it. But again, no fault to Tamara Morrison. I thought he did fine. It was disappointing that the series didn't care about Boba Fett. So why should we? Because they did everything else but worry about Boba Fett after like episode 2. So
and that's what people wanted. They was like, Mandalorian, I don't care.
So I was nervous in that aspect, but honestly, I was very happy with the episodes that we've got.
It's funny you mentioned that the whole prequel thing, right? Because like people, just growing up, on those movies, people was hating on those movies hard. And now, if you really look at the trends and stuff like that, those movies are trending so hard because like people are really interested in filling in that void space. And the moment they started doing the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and all those shows in between, those shows became more interesting because those characters from those movies are in there, and it's like it shows like the Clone Wars, which when you fill that void, it makes those characters way more interesting. It makes Anakin's turn, okay, you like, okay, I can see that, okay, whatever.
And another thing about it too is keep in mind when the prequels were made, they were honestly geared more towards kids. They weren't geared toward the people who, the original 4, 5, and 6 were geared toward. So those people who were kids when the prequels were out are now the adults. Right. So there is that love that they're finally like, yes, this is our time. This is the time when people can finally see we were right, you were wrong, or something. But anyway, there's no right and wrong. It's just Star Wars.
Right.
I mean, it is what it is.
So jumping into what you came here for, Kenobi. They jumpstart your brain right off with showing you everything leading up to that point. What's gotten you to this whole Empire control regiment that we got going on. They show you the whole relationship between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and he was meant to train them, and we all know Anakin.
It was the cliff notes for anybody who did not watch the prequels. It was like, here's what you need to know in like 3 minutes. You're good.
And Anakin was meant to lead the Jedi to the path of righteousness. You know what I mean?
He was the chosen one.
Through no fault of his own and not getting what he wanted. That seat on the council. We quickly you'll see Anakin fall to the dark side and doing things that the Jedi should not be doing on the sidelines with Padme, which quickly led him to looking for ways to save her and being misled into the dark side as we've seen when the fight on Mustafa. Am I saying that right?
Mustafa,
yes, thank you. I'm thinking about
you're thinking about James Earl Jones.
But anyway, like the show pretty much lets us know that this is 10 years later. Everybody's been hiding out. Empire still hunting down any of the remaining Jedi. They start us right off with showing us the temple scene, which is it's always hard to watch when I try to rewatch that because
there is a thing right now which I've seen in like the last year where they really love going back to Order 66, like really showing every angle of Order 66 because we've seen it in Bad Batch, we've seen it in like parts of the Book of Boba Fett and stuff like that. It's just like they really love tapping into Order 66 like all over again. But I get it. There's so much of that the movie had no time to show us. So it makes sense that, especially with that playing such a pivotal part with where we are with Kenobi, because that is one of his two greatest failures. Obviously, the rise of the Sith and the fall of his Padawan and his brother and best friend. However you want to spin it, but
this kid is like 20 years younger than him. I feel like that scene is very important too because I feel like at Revenge of the Sith, they really try to make it seem like every Jedi on the spot was killed, and that's just not the truth. That wasn't the whatever of it. There's so many Jedi that were off elsewhere.
Yeah, there's a big comprehensive list. There was like a book that came out that like almost documented every surviving Jedi from Order 66, and there's a lot of them that did survive.
I'm glad they did that because of course that opens up so many stories, not only for games but for books, but for any media going forward. So you can just pick up pretty much any Jedi that was just like training or whatever, and just pick them up for later points. Which is again, you're able to you could just pretty much make anybody a Jedi like they've done in this series as we see starting off.
I do have a theory about that opening scene too, which we can talk about towards the end of this. What's the reason why I feel like they showed in such detail? I feel like it pertains to a particular character who we were introduced to in these first two episodes. So.
Okay. Yeah. So as we know, like I said, we get back and they come into pretty much like we get our first look at the Inquisitors. Which anybody that's been watching Rebels or whatever knows who the Inquisitors are. We found out, of course, the Inquisitors are pretty much Jedi that turned and now hunting down other Jedi.
Right.
And we come across, they come and interrogate a guy at a bar. And of course, our first thought is, man, Obi-Wan about to get caught up already in the first 10 minutes.
I didn't assume that. I figured it was something because it seemed at first, initially when they walked in and he was discussing it with the bartender. Yeah. But then I was like, no, Obi-Wan wouldn't be this sloppy, not with what his responsibility is. That's why I figured this was meant to really show off the power of the Inquisitors, or like the actual threat that they pose, not only to the remaining Jedi, but to the galaxy as a whole. Right. Especially in a place like Tatooine, which is in the Outer Rim, which is basically kind of lawless at this point.
Right. So, I mean, of course, we found out that this guy's in the bar, apparently Jedi can't help but help people. Apparently that's their biggest weakness. Apparently they can't turn off the good.
Right. I think his name was Nari. I'm trying to remember. I want to say the character's name was Nari. I didn't catch it too much because I'm pretty much had a feeling what was going to happen to him. So like,
yeah, he was done from the start, man.
You're cannon fodder. I get that. You're meant to propel the story forward.
But yeah, he as we find out, he winds up getting into a whole thing with them. He winds up escaping. Something I found ridiculous as I was watching it yesterday. He uses the Force to bring down like the roof or whatever it is, right. And it's literally 2 paths on the side going forward that they could have just went around. Like that was going to stop them.
It was just the quickest thing that he had. I understand. I mean, in the moment, you're going to act as he's not thinking. I mean, he's just thinking about getting away. So it makes sense that was the quickest thing. And he's probably, depending on certain people, they may or may not still have a strong connection with the Force, because if they did go into hiding, very similar to what Obi-Wan did, you usually don't use the Force very often, and that will wane your connection to it depending on who you are, which we kind of see with Kenobi towards, especially with Episode 2, because he hasn't really used it.
Jedi or anybody uses the Force can like sense anybody else using the Force, or whatever, like Highlanders.
It really depends on their attachment. I mean, it depends on especially depending on who this first character was. Was he just a Padawan? If he was a Padawan, he might have not been fully trained by the time Order 66 kicked off. So, it was very similar to like what we saw with Rebels with Kanan Jarrett, and like he wasn't as strong connected at the Force at the beginning of Rebels because he was just a Padawan when Order 66 initiated. And even with Cal Kestis in the games, Jedi Fallen Order, he was also a Padawan at the time. So that's why I think that game worked, was because you had to learn how to use all the Force stuff, because he was probably not fully trained at that point.
I guess we can officially kill the Star Killer stuff, right? That's no longer canon, right?
Not yet. I figure they will. They like Sam Witwer way too much. So
right. Okay. So we get him. He gets away. Mm-hmm. We come into where Kenobi's been doing. He's pretty much in a routine at this point. Mm-hmm. He's working at a meat packing plant.
I don't know which creature that was supposed to be. I think I speculated, or I thought about it. The first thing that popped in my head was a crate dragon at first, because we were introduced to that in Mandalorian season 2, and that's the only other major sand creature I can think of that's on Tatooine. There are more knowledgeable Star Wars fans out there that probably are yelling at me right now. It's like, no, it's this one. It's in the canon now. I'm like, I know. Sorry. I'm just like, I feel like I have intermediate knowledge of most Star Wars. But when you get the creatures, there's a ballpark range.
Those 200 books that people had to read that are no longer canon, right?
Some stuff that was canon, that was no longer canon, is now canon. So that's always an interesting fact with it.
So we see him like doing his thing. He's doing his job. We see him like cutting the meat off, because he hustling on the job, and he takes it back to his camel, so he can get paid.
I forget the name of that creature though, because I heard the name the other day. But anyway,
And we see him like he's out in the middle of nowhere, living in a cave at this point. And he is, like you said, just completely cut off from the Force, even though we know that Yoda sent him into whatever, so that he could train, so they can somehow connect with Qui-Gon. We know, so they can attune to the Force and become.
Well, that's what he said, but I don't think this based off of context clues, and this is just a theory, because he's obviously in hiding, but he's still keeping a watchful eye on Luke, who is, at this stage in the timeline, he's 10 years old. So we're talking. I want to say he was probably supposed to be around like 18, 19 at the start of A New Hope. So we're maybe
he was definitely like 20 something.
Was he 20 something?
It was like 20 something years after.
Well, I think canonically, I want to say it's 23 years.
Yeah.
From the Battle of Mustafar to the Battle of Yavin 4.
Right.
So I think it's 23 or 25 years. I'm sure somebody will correct me in the comments. But
they will.
Yeah. But yeah, so then we're still at least a good 12, 13 years off from at that point. But he's just mainly doing that. But what I found interesting was that, when he's having the nightmares after about Order 66 and
Right.
losing Anakin and stuff like that. He does call out the Qui-Gon, but nothing happened. So I'm assuming, even though Yoda probably told him what to do, he probably has not made contact with Qui-Gon at all.
Right.
Not at this point in time. He probably. I'm theorizing that we won't see that connection until like the 5th or 6th episode.
Man, I always thinking about that too, man, and just like the responsibility that Obi-Wan feels like, literally training the person that has brought down everything. You know what I mean? And pretty much gave the keys, but as we found out later in episode 2, he apparently doesn't even know that Anakin Vader is alive.
No.
I'm not going to try to like go through beat by beat through the show at this point, but like,
right.
Like you said, we see Obi-Wan still cares. He's still trying to watch over Luke. He's doing his job. He's buying the kid toys. Uncle Owen ain't hearing it. You know what I mean?
No. And Owen played by Joel Edgerton, because they got him back for the series, because he was cast in Attack of the Clones way back when to play Owen Lars, and they, he's stuck with the franchise since then. But was he the same guy in Revenge of the Sith? Yes. Yeah. No, he's played the character the entire time. Wow. Yeah. But I get where Owen is coming from. I understand. He is, at this point, his only concern is Luke. Very similar to what Obi-Wan's is, but obviously different ideologies. Obi-Wan still feels like once he's of age, he needs to be trained. And of course, there's the lovely jab, like, you trained his father. I'm like, okay, Owen.
Yeah, that was petty.
But it's not petty. I mean, I get it, because at the time when I first watched the trailer and they dropped that I was like, come on, dude. It's not his fault. He didn't know. It was not his fault. But I get it, because it's like, yeah, he's like, yes, I'm going to take care of Luke. But clearly, your whole wizard fantasy stuff is what got my, I guess technically he was like stepbrother killed.
Right.
And, it's like, and now you want to drag this kid who's only 10 into the same thing. So I get it. As a protective parent, I get it.
Right.
I'm not a parent, but I get
the idea. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I get the idea of it. But I don't feel like, because again, it's not a strong enough annoyance, because clearly he didn't sell him out to Reva.
Right.
When she was going apeshit all over the place. And
that's
another person definitely I'm excited about with this series, because first off, it's always nice to see a sister in the
played by Moses Ingram.
Yes,
he was in the chess show. Who was, I cannot remember.
Queen's Gambit. Yeah. But yeah, her character is who I have questions about, because her connection. Because I was always under the impression, and this gets into episode 2 territory, I was always under the impression that once Anakin turned to the dark side and was crowned as Vader, I was always under the impression that no one really knew that Anakin was Vader. Only a select few people knew. Of course, the Emperor knew. Of course, Obi-Wan knew that Anakin was Vader, because he saw the hologram that he was Darth Vader. Same thing with Yoda. They all knew.
Right.
I didn't know it was common knowledge, or even not necessarily common knowledge. So how did Reva know that Anakin is Vader? Unless
he had a same thing.
When that reveal in episode 2, which again, we can probably jump to episode 2 in a few minutes.
Yeah,
but in terms of episode 1, like, my biggest thing with episode 1 that I liked the most was that it really set up where Obi-Wan's at mentally.
Yeah, he and you probably seen the memes right already. Just don't give a fuck, man. Look the other way. That's not my problem.
Yeah,
you see what happens to the Jedi, that ran away. He tried to ask Obi-Wan for help, and he was like, "Man, what happened to you?" He's like, "Look, get up out of here."
right. And I'm waiting for more of the Discord of people being like, "Wow, that's really great. That's really awesome." So if you say that now, were you one of the people a couple years ago that said that same crap about Luke when he gave Rey the same cold shoulder in The Last Jedi, that people love to rip on The Last Jedi?
I love The Last Jedi. I have no problem.
I love The Last Jedi. I think it's the best one of the sequel trilogy. It has the most depth of the story for me.
Right.
But there are people that were feeling that sort of betrayal from Luke, I'm like, well, then look at Obi-Wan. It happens to people when their entire world comes crashing down. Right. And I remember reading about how they were going to do this series where they were like, oh, he's going to go off world. I'm like, how are you going to do that? And that's when I was like, oh, we get baby Leia. And I was very happy about that.
Yeah, I was very surprised her introduction in the series. I for whatever reason, I didn't even fathom that they were even going to play her. You know what I mean? Because if you watch those movies, she did have a previous relation with Obi-Wan, or her family did.
Yeah, because she says it in the first thing.
So I was glad to see her in this, and of course, we get a lot of insight as to her being, you know, we kind of see some of the Force sensitive stuff, you know, with her talking to her cousin or whatever, and kind of reading them in the room. Yeah. And we're just seeing like a lot of her personality as to who we know she becomes later on.
And whoever, I don't know the actor, the child actor that they got to portray her, but she is a spitting image of Carrie Fisher, like spitting image of a very young Carrie Fisher.
She's the actress that she played the girl in the Bird Box movie.
Oh, I never saw the movie. I never saw Bird Box. I've seen the memes and stuff. I never watched Bird Box. That's cool. Okay.
So like you said, we know these Inquisitors is looking for Obi-Wan hard. We still don't know why. You know, Reva is so pressed, man. She's willing to go out here and kill people to get the Obi-Wan. Clearly, there's something that happened during the Clone Wars, possibly, or whatever. But
yeah,
we finally get Jimmy Smits back in the show, who I didn't think was going to come back at all, and play Senator Organa.
I assumed when I saw Leia, I'm like, they probably got Smits back for it. I mean, they did a little bit of makeup because they had to age him down a little bit. Yeah, they had to age him down just a little bit because this is only 10 years from Revenge of the Sith, so he still looked fairly young. But I was more surprised that they got Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh my god,
that was Flea. Because it's the same guy. Because you don't forget it. I mean, that face same face from the Back to the Future trilogy, because that's where he was also in. But yeah, it's I thought it was a very smart way of, if you're going to try to drag Obi-Wan out to do something completely away from what he was charged to do, the only logical step would be, somebody kidnapped Leia. And even still, at first, he said no. Which I'm like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah,
sorry, excuse me, language. But yeah, I was like, what are you doing? It's like, it took him actually showing up to his homestead to be like, dude, listen, Anakin's gone. I get it. It sucks. Move on. Like, help her. And that it provides more context to those opening scenes in A New Hope, where she's like, you know, you once served my father in Clone Wars, but they lovely, you know, I like that would make sense as to why she would reach out to him. Right. Because they have this little mini adventure in this series. So it makes sense. And would also justify too the question of like, why would you name your son Ben instead of anybody else? You named him after Obi-Wan? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Because you didn't really have a huge connection with Obi-Wan at the time, but now we understand why. Obi-Wan saved your life when you were a little girl, so of course you're going to name your firstborn kid Ben. So it provides context to future things, which
I definitely appreciate that. Like you said, we had Organa come out personally, and that Leia's been kidnapped by Reva, because she doesn't know who she is, but she knows that she's Organa's daughter who helped him during the Clone Wars, yada yada yada.
Right, they had a relationship. That's the only reason why.
Right, not knowing, which lets me know, that she'll never get to Vader, and they'll never know. Because I mean, at that time, remember, you didn't find out that was his sister until Return of the Jedi.
Right, so, that's when he found out that Leia. He found out Luke had a sister, and found out it was Leia, and so. He didn't even learn about Luke until, so I don't think there's really going to be any interaction with the kids. I think episode 3 is most likely going to be focused solely, like, Leia's going to be back with the family, and then Obi-Wan's going to be off doing something else.
Right.
Most likely.
They got him. So we got the fifth brother, who I just found out today is played by Han from Fast and the Furious.
Is it?
Yeah, it's him, man. Mr. Ninja Assassin, Han, Tokyo Drift. That is him. I was shocked. I could not. And I was like, why are they talking like this? I was like, why do Inquisitors talk like this?
That is him.
Yeah.
I saw the name and I didn't put him because he doesn't have long hair in some of these pictures. In some of these new pictures, he has short hair.
I think his name.
Yeah, Sun Kang is.
What did you? Because I know a lot of people had like issues. What did you think about the Grand Inquisitor in this show? Versus the Rebel series.
Versus Rebels. Well, I didn't. So here, I guess this is the dark secret. I didn't watch all of Rebels. I've seen like bits and pieces of Rebels. I've seen most of the beginning and most of the last season. Like a lot of the in-between stuff I didn't watch. I've seen pictures of him, and I know there was this big debate about the look of him. Like, oh, why does he look? His head doesn't look right. I'm like, well, this is a human being. Right. The head's not going to be super elongated. Yeah, you could probably get somebody, but that didn't bother me. Obviously, it didn't seem like it's a huge deal considering that Reva kind of supposedly ices him in episode 2. Right. I don't think he's dead though.
No, because it wouldn't make sense if all that cartoon stuff is canon. It wouldn't make sense timeline wise, unless it's either a clone, which apparently you can't clone Jedi, so whatever. That's bullshit. Yeah. But
I don't think it's a clone. It could just be another person from the same race. There's nothing that says, because we saw that race in episode 3 as one of the politicians on the planet that Obi-Wan went to stop Grievous. The guy he talked to was the same race. So it doesn't stand to believe that it could rather just be another person who's a Grand Inquisitor, but the likely scenario is that he's not dead. Which would not bode well for Reva, considering I don't think he would keep quiet about her trying to ice him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like how episode 1 ends with him basically going out to the desert, uncovering him and Anakin's sabers.
I really like that shot, man. I like the fact they even showed Anakin's lightsaber in the box, because I really wanted to see that. You know what I mean?
It called back to earlier in the episode when he told the other young Jedi, was like, go out in the desert, get rid of your lightsaber, bury it in the ground, and just live a normal life. And that's it was a nice callback to that. And when we get the shot of it hanging off his belt before he jumps on the Star Cruiser, I'm like, dude, that's not the best place to hide your saber. I'm like, what are you doing? You look like you're dressed like a Jedi and you're carrying the saber. I'm like, what are you doing?
I just thought that was weird, man. Like because they pretty much had like all travel kind of cutting off from so he wasn't getting off that planet either way.
No, but I think Bale got him like some sort of transport, like the ticket or something. Because when he looked at it, I think that's what Bale gave him.
Talk about like you said, episode 2, we get Kamala Nanjiani as this mysterious Jedi that is like hustling people for money.
I think it's still up for debate if he's actually a Jedi though. I think he's more of a scam art. But even before that, and there was something I forgot to mention in my review, was that we got our Tamara Morrison cameo. He was
the old trooper. Yeah.
And it's funny because he was dressed as the 501st, which was Anakin's unit. He was dressed in that armor, and I think there was a level of recollection between the two.
Right.
But they didn't actually obviously say anything. I think he just kind of kept his mouth shut, or they both just kind of.
Yeah, man, it's crazy because we're at this era now because everybody knows what back when nobody knew what stormtroopers looked like. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now we can get a lot of unmasked stormtroopers because this era of stormtroopers where they were still using the remaining clone troopers.
Right. But even at this point in the timeline, my understanding, I believe this is when they started to phase out the clone troopers and started recruiting just regular people into stormtroopers
and brainwashing them.
Well, most of them would be brainwashed just from general rhetoric and general propaganda, not like actually having to use inhibitor chips like they did with the clones. But it was just nice to see him. It was a blinking and miss a cameo though. But yeah, I guess it was like, hey, sorry we screwed up with Boba Fett. Here you go. You get to be another clone.
Yeah.
But hey, that keeps him set up for a long time. As long as he still looks.
Yeah, he's got to work for days, especially with Bad Batch and everything else. Like, he consistently use him.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, we get Kenobi like getting being led down this path. They got a whole con going, and he's using his whatever as a Jedi, which you think you would not want to pretend to be a Jedi these days. If they hunting people as
right, which leads me to the question: is he really a Jedi, or does it? Because he was like, you're using magnets and stuff, right. But that brings up the debate of like how strong is his connection with the Force right now? Because in this episode, when we see Obi-Wan actually first use his connection to save Leia as she's falling off the edge of the building.
He had to dig deep for that.
So I think I'm pretty sure it's just a level of connection, and like how much were you still practicing? Right. Obviously when you're supposed to be hiding out. But
did you think his intent was genuine when he led him? He was like, hey, I got a ship, yada yada yada.
I think they got me at first. Well, no, after the initial he saved him in the alley, I realized it's probably genuine. But the initial interaction, and then the subsequent once they showed that his the bounty was put out for him, I was still questioning it. But up to that point, I was like, okay, I think because even when he was like, you remember my name? I'm like, yeah, okay, no, he's kind of fanboying out right now. So I'm like, that makes sense. That makes total sense. So yeah, at that point, I knew he was on the up and up.
Can I just say to you, as much as I like seeing Leia in this, she is annoying.
There were moments I was like, Leia, stop. Like, I love you. You are headstrong, but she was like, when he was like after he saved her, and it was like, listen, you're my daughter and we're farmers. He's like, granddaughter, maybe. You're like, what? It was like, that was like, come on. That was funny. Unnecessary though. Like, why are you running away from him? You don't know where you are. I get it. But then when she falls out, it's like, Ben, help me. I'm like, this is your fault. What the hell? Like, God, like, this is why I don't have kids. It's just like, yeah, there were moments that were kind of a struggle a little bit, but her charm in general and just her personality, I think, made it so that I would, and also because I knew the fate of the characters anyway, it takes a level of like, oh man, just die. But I'm like, no, don't do that.
This guy about to cause Tamara is here.
Right.
Now, of course, we know Obi-Wan has that saber on him, where she's like, "Oh yeah, you're a Jedi, yeah." You know what I mean? Like they're gonna hold that off for a while. I think they're good before you get that popped out.
You're not gonna see that probably until his confrontation with Vader, because I
want to say like maybe episode 4 somewhere.
No, it's gonna be a 5 or 6 thing, because they that long? Well, it's only, if I'm remembering correctly, this is only a 6-episode series.
Yeah,
I believe it's only 6 episodes. Which that's another discussion of just like I'm really struggling with the 6-episode series, and
keep in mind that they're dumping movie money into the series,
right? No, and I get that, but the problem is that you try to do so much, and the pacing becomes affected. I've had that issue with a couple of the MCU series so far, right? But I know it just depends, because obviously if they're like half an hour stuff like WandaVision or She-Hulk, they're getting half an hour episodes and they're getting like 8 or 9 episodes. That makes sense. But I think one thing I was very happy about with these first 2 episodes is that I felt like the pacing didn't suffer.
I was drawing it.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the pacing. I thought the pacing, everything in each episode went very smoothly, and things were given time to breathe. And I think that just is a testament to Deborah Chow as a showrunner for this series. I'm like, she just does amazing work, and she directed 2 of the episodes in Mandalorian that were like my favorite episodes. So I mean, she just does great work. So I didn't notice that with this series, but I do think anything with his saber and all that stuff is going to be saved for like episode 5, episode 6, especially since they've really touted that this is going to be the rematch between Obi-Wan and Anakin. That was the whole selling point of it, was like, yeah, they do actually have a second confrontation before their final confrontation on the Death Star. But
I didn't think that we would ever, when I remember when they were talking about this show, I didn't even think we were even going to even see Vader. They were even going to talk about Vader. I didn't think Hayden Christensen was even going to be involved, none whatsoever.
And I've watched interviews with both of them recently with Obi-Wan, with Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, and the smile on Hayden Christensen's face is infectious. I feel so glad that he feels a sense of happiness now. I don't know if he was super happy with the reception initially.
I'm telling you, man, like ever since we started doing this little fill in the blanks, like it's been a completely different reception to those movies now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it just in terms of context, like when you start giving people more backstory, more whatever behind characters, you definitely like it a lot more. You know what I mean? So like I said, the Clone Wars and all that stuff definitely gives more context. The comics that they've been doing recently, for Vader and stuff like that, give way more context to a lot of the in between stuff and what was happening. The what is it? The High Republic series that they've been doing.
Yeah, that's coming. I know they're talked about. There's a High Republic comic, and I've heard that they're talking about doing like a series or a movie that's going to be set during that age. But because all that stuff's like 1,000 years before.
Yeah, 100 years before. What did you? We get the shot of seeing Anakin Vader in the tank on his respirator.
That was a dope way of ending episode 2, which I guess I'll talk about my theory when it comes to Reva, because it's like she knows that Vader is Anakin. So how the hell does she know that? Unless Vader's had a hand in training her. But also there's some context clues in the first 2 episodes when her interaction with the brothers and sisters of the Inquisitors, where they call her like trash or she came from the gutter and stuff like that. I'm like, why would you diss her like that? I think and that ties back to that opening scene with the kids escaping the temple. I think she was one of the kids who escaped the temple during Order 66. Because she would match up with, in terms of age, because those kids are probably like 8.
Did they really show them? Because I'm gonna have to go back and watch the scene.
I went back and watched like the opening clip. Because I think I was watching someone doing like a reaction to it, and one of the kids looks like a girl. It looks pretty melanin, so it wouldn't be a stretch, and to say that yes, or even maybe not one of those kids, but she could have been a former Padawan who was captured and then seduced to the dark side, and could have easily have been told like, hey, you know, Jedi decided to uprise and stuff like that. And especially if they're like a kid or a Padawan, they will believe that shit. And then be like, oh, this is the Jedi that really caused all of this downfall, and it's Obi Wan Kenobi. Or if she was somehow secretly trained by Vader, he could have easily twisted her to think, oh, yeah, Obi-Wan used to be my former master. He did this to me. And being someone who clearly wants to impress, wouldn't you have an unhealthy obsession with going after the person that caused great harm to probably your master at that point? You know, because we know Vader took on secret apprentices the entire time. That's where we got Starkiller from. Right. It's not hard to think that maybe they would use that same sort of format towards Reva's character. That would give Reva so much more backstory in terms of what's driving her, what's this motivation. And it would make sense why she was put onto the Inquisitors, but not maybe have trained with the rest of them. That's why they could assume that she's trash. So that's just again, it's a theory that I haven't seen too many people super talking about, except for the fact that she was probably a youngling or a Padawan,
right?
And was probably twisted. But maybe the relationship with Vader is a lot more personal than most people know.
Right. I'm really hoping, like I said, I mean, because we don't really get a lot of Vader in his prime. We get the, you know, Vader on his way out the retirement. You know, he's not like that old, man. He's not that old.
I mean, he's pushing. I mean, at that point, he's definitely pushing in like early 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like especially after seeing Rogue One, a lot of people want to see more of that Vader action. You know what I mean? I'm hoping for sure that we definitely get to see it in this series, like to like the fullest extent, to really see like some of the power. And I feel like that was one of the big things too that people really had an issue with when it came to like those other movies, is like when Luke and all them came into power, especially after reading all that stuff over the years, we know how powerful Luke was and the family stuff like that. They really didn't give us a lot of that in those movies, and I feel like the fanboys was real mad about that. And
fanboys are gonna be mad about whatever.
Right.
I mean, and again, you can get into discussions about what are they really mad about when it comes to, let's say, Rey. I'm like, it's not her abilities that you're mad about. You're mad about something completely stupid. But that's just my
get those writers in the room.
Yeah.
Something big too that I if we would definitely be overlooking. This is the first time we ever get to see Alderaan.
Well, I think we briefly see it, at the end of Revenge of the Sith. But this is the first time we spent any sort of considerable time.
When they go back.
It's like any considerable time in live action. I mean, obviously, I think Clone Wars and Rebels, I think, had some time frame on Alderaan in certain episodes. But this is the first time in live action we've spent considerable time in Alderaan. And for sure. Yeah, no, it's definitely considerable time was spent. And I as much as it was cool seeing young Leia and young Luke, I don't think they're going to play as big of a factor at least in this series, as like, I don't think they're going to be in every episode. It's not going to be a Baby Yoda situation.
Right. You expect Leia to be back home and safe by episode 3.
Right. And let Obi-Wan go do the other things. Like, he's probably obviously going to be like, okay, well, clearly Anakin's alive, and that's going to put more of a target on his back, because when he called out like that, I think he called out through the Force, and that's why Anakin's eyes lit up, because he's like, oh, now I found you. Like, you're still alive. And because they, I like how the series is using a lot of unspoken dialogue from A New Hope, because when Vader first senses Obi-Wan on the Death Star, he's like, hasn't felt a presence like this since, and he doesn't say anything. Right. So most people are left to assume you're talking about the Battle of Mustafar. We're not talking about a second encounter that happened between those two time frames. I think that's how they were probably playing up the series. Is like, oh, they never admitted that they've seen each other since then. What's not to say they didn't? And that's probably where the concept of the series came from, most likely.
Yeah, you gotta love that void space, man, and like what you do, because we about to sell a ton of Kenobi Black Series lightsabers out here. I guess, like, after episode 2, we see Obi-Wan do his thing and get back on board and save Leia from her impending doom, because we can't let her die. We know she can't die.
Right.
I honestly did not expect him to catch her, find her so quickly as he did.
Well, again, that could be a question of the pacing of the series, because they're trying to do so much. This was the whole purpose of having Leia, I think, in these first 2 episodes, was to give Obi-Wan a reason to leave Tatooine. And that was, I think that's been resolved, but also now he has another reason to try to figure out why, okay, if Vader's alive, what do I try to do? Because they made a point of reminding us at the beginning of episode 1, when they did the whole montage of Padme telling him there's still good in him, I can feel it.
Right.
Is he going to use that as a reason to go look for Vader at this point? To have that second confrontation, to give that one last shot of redeeming him, and obviously probably fail, and then realize, okay, there's no saving him at this point. And then that would explain the conversation between him and Luke in Return of the Jedi, when Luke is determined to try to save him, and then Obi-Wan's like, he's more machine now than man. So it's very possible that they're using a lot of these clues to try to plot the timeline of this 6-episode series, because with it only being 6 episodes, it makes sense that this probably won't have a season 2. Most likely, this will probably just be a one and done.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure they cost them like a ton of money. No need to hit it too hard. You know what I mean? Like, we even got this at all. I'm happy.
Well, originally this was supposed to be a movie, and I'm kind of glad it's not a movie, because you get more time doing it as a series.
Was it?
Yeah, a long time ago. This was with the slate originally with Rogue One and with Solo, and this was supposed to be like
they dialed that back a lot
after Solo. I think that's when this got shelved, and then once Disneyplus became a thing, they were like, well, what if we do it? And then I think they originally talked about doing it as a movie on Disneyplus, but they were like, what if we do it as a series, and we do 6 1-hour episodes? You can tell a really long story, and really give a lot of meat and potatoes to the story and flesh out more
three movies, like every 2 hours,
or two very long Lord of the Rings movies, one or the other. That makes total sense, and it definitely left me in more of a like, okay, so these last 4 episodes are going to move pretty quickly if we're setting this up. I don't know who else he might encounter, but it definitely has me more intrigued at this point than I was with like the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, definitely had more of a idea of where we're going. Well, again, it's just that series just didn't know what it wanted to be, and that was the problem with the series. Yeah.
Honestly, it would have probably just made more sense, like if they would have, as far as in terms of Boba Fett, if they, the Mandalorian, because it just felt like a side story to the Mandalorian, to be honest. Like,
unfortunately, yes. But that's not, I think the problem is the series just really didn't know what it wanted to do. They were like, we want to capitalize on Boba Fett. Okay, I thought it was like, oh, he's going to be trying to rule the underworld. That's great. That's different. And I figured that was going to be their backdoor into they talked about a couple years ago doing like a underbelly type series or movie in the Star Wars universe, like with just mainly bounty hunters. And I thought that's what it was going to be. But then it just ended up being something that was like, we don't know what we want this to be. And like around episode 4, we're like, oh, let's prepare for a big battle. Okay, what do you want to do with episode 5? Should we do a detour with the Mandalorian? I'm like, why? What is where? Okay. And it's like, oh, that was cool. That was a great episode. We should do another one. I'm like, episode 6 is the finale. Like, shit, we got to wrap this thing up. I'm like, that's what it felt like with that series. But this one, it feels like there is a clear goal. The goal is the eventual rematch between Obi-Wan and Vader.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they stick to that goal, this will be a really good series.
Yeah, because I think they're still going to be on the regular Wednesday night schedule. So Wednesday.
No, I think this is going to be on Fridays. I thought.
I thought the calendar was on Wednesdays, but
it might be, because I'm not sure, because Miss Marvel comes out June 8th, which is a Wednesday.
Right.
And usually Marvel had taken over Wednesdays and Star Wars was on Fridays. It's usually
I'm with it either way.
Yeah.
I guess going into episode 3, now that we got to put Leia back the way she needs to go. What are you expecting here? Like, what do you think we're gonna get?
I don't really know. Like, episode 3 and 4 are very up in the air. I'm like, we'll probably get some backstory with Reva, most likely, because she's obviously taken the Grand Inquisitor out of commission, at least temporarily, and she'll probably still be hunting Obi-Wan, most likely, taunting him for the most part. I don't think she's going to probably try to go after Leia again, because that didn't work. And she has no idea about Luke, and I think they're going to try to keep it that way. That's probably what's going to end up being. But yeah, the next 2 episodes are most likely going to tee up more of Reva's character and motivation. And then like episode 5 and 6 are probably going to get closer to rather him communing with Qui-Gon, probably getting some advice about what to do with Anakin. And then episode 6 is going to probably be the confrontation.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
Probably right now. We definitely going to see some Qui-Gon.
Yeah, because Liam Neeson was very coy about, well, no one called me. I'm like,
yeah, okay.
that's what Andrew Garfield said before No Way Home came out. So nobody called me.
No, I'm not in it.
Yeah, like, I'm telling you, I'm not in it. I'm like, you liar. I'm like, but that's fine. You gotta do what you gotta do. But no, I'm assuming this will be, if they decide to run it on Wednesdays, I doubt. I think next week it will be Wednesday. Okay. And I think the week after that, most likely it'll be Friday, because I think they're going to give Wednesdays to Miss Marvel, and then this will be Friday, because they'll only have like 3 more weeks of that, and Miss Marvel will have another. I think Miss Marvel is actually getting like between 6 and 8 episodes, and it might be 6. I know She-Hulk's getting 9 9 episodes, but they're half an hour.
I'm with it. Overall, this is going to be 6 episodes, Disneyplus. I love these first 2. I'm glad that Disney graced us with 2 episodes, and after moving it from Wednesday to Friday, this is really good to me. I'm tuned in. This is appointment television for me.
It is the most excited I've been for one of the Star Wars series since Mandalorian.
Right.
So I think this has very good potential to probably be the best one of the Star Wars ones.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Was it Endor or what is it called? What we getting like?
Andor, Cassian Andor. That was from Rogue One. I like Diego Luna. I don't know what they're going to do
issue with him. I just thought it was over. I thought he told us,
Well, yeah, no, this is obviously before Rogue One, which is just meant to set him up. But again, prequels are hard because we know where the character is, and you have to have a really good story to really talk about someone's past, because you probably give it, I think they're basing everything off of that one line from the movie where he's like, I've been fighting this fight since I was like 12 years old or something like that. I think that's what he said. I'm more waiting. Besides this, the next one I'm excited for is Ahsoka. Yeah. Because that's I think there's rumors that we're going to get Ezra.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. We've been waiting to see that for a long time.
Yeah.
So, yes, that makes sense for them. Absolutely makes sense for him to still be there and a thing. So, I can't wait.
Definitely.
But yeah, on that note, that was episodes 1 and 2 of Kenobi. Let us know in the comments what you thought about the episodes, and if Leia was annoying for you as well, because I'm about to kick off the ship.
I wouldn't say I was going to kick her off the ship, but I think she's smart enough after she got caught in midair. So that's
right. She's really good, man. And
she learned.
For them to kind of try to fit some of Carrie Fisher's her character's personality into a younger version of herself. I thought they really did a really good job of.
But not even just her personality, it was Padme's as well, because he even makes a
comment about that. Yeah, just like your mother. What? Yeah. somebody that I know.
Yeah, you remind me of somebody.
You can't reveal that,
of course.
But yeah, this is like you said, it's great 2 episodes. I can't wait till next week. Talk about this some more.
Definitely.
On that note, we'll catch you guys next time for episode 3 and tell you about all the correct things that we called during this one. And,
I appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hope we get you back for episode 3.
That's fine. If I've got time, sure, go for it.
But yeah, we'll catch you guys next time. It's Terrell and
Wolf.
And we're out. See you.